Okay, so the fireworks have begun early in this courtroom. I want to bring on my guest this morning, Law and Crime legal analyst Gene Rossi. Gene, great to see you. I'm glad to have you here. Now, I got to say, I love what the defense is doing here. Okay, so the defense from Magbanua knows that the state is finishing up their case. They have this FBI agent who just had a remarkable day on the stand yesterday with all those wiretap conversations. And yet what they're trying to do, and correct me, I'm curious your thoughts on this strategy, is going through the state's case and breaking it piece by piece by piece through this witness, saying, okay, you only went after Magbanua because of Rivera. Can we really trust Rivera? He's the head of a gang. And also, let's go through the messages. Let's go through the bank records. I'm curious, do you think they're making headway? Because yesterday, it could be argued, was a highly damaging day for the defense.
Well, sadly, I was in a car and I didn't hear the testimony yesterday, but I can say this. Every time I called an agent on the stand, whether it was a local detective or an FBI agent, and I usually called them towards the end of the case, I was always afraid of cross-examination that gets into the motives of the police, their tactics, and why they did certain things. And I would try to protect their integrity and their method of operations. I got to say this, the prosecutor is doing a good job trying to cabin and narrow the cross-examination, but I think the defense is doing what they should be doing, and I think they're doing a good job with what they have.
Yeah, no, they brought out the board and they said, okay, so Charlie Adelson, Donna Adelson, Wendy Adelson, Harvey Adelson, none of them have been charged, none of them have been arrested. The only link that Magbanua has to this whole thing is through Luis Rivera. He's the only witness. They said, yes, it's the only witness, but it's not all the evidence they have. Obviously, the phone conversations from yesterday, the financial transactions, the connection to Charlie Adelson as well as to Mr. Garcia is something the jury is going to be considering. Okay, Gene, as the defense is trying to pick apart the case against Magbanua, I'm curious, at this point in the trial, do you think the state has a stronger case against Garcia than they do against Magbanua, or is it about equal in your opinion? Because they've presented everything from the financial transactions to the phone communications to the timeline of events, and you could say they have a strong case, but again, she wasn't in that car. She didn't pull that trigger. They're saying she's the link between the Adelsons and the shooters. What do you think?
I got to tell you, when you don't have any forensics, when you don't have eyewitness testimony, when you don't have anybody else to put her at the scene of the crime where the murder occurred, it's a circumstantial case. And she's basically a facilitator, a person who links people to commit the murder. And she obviously recruited Garcia, allegedly recruited Garcia. I would say that it's not less strong as Garcia, but they're proving a good circumstantial case. I do want to comment on a cross-examination. I think the defense attorney's doing an excellent job. I think the objections are pretty good and they're being sustained. But you can see whenever you put on your FBI agent or detective at the end of the case or during a case, I always sat there going, oh my God, I hope I get him off the stand or her off the stand as soon as possible, because you can see the FBI agent getting a little uncomfortable because he's being challenged on his methods and his motives for investigating the case, and agents don't like that.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree with you. It seems to be a little bit of tension right there, which you see under a cross-examination. But this one, when you have such an important witness for the state, I'm curious to think what the jury might be thinking at this point. So as they still try to poke holes, Gene, I want to ask you the million-dollar question here, okay? So if Garcia and Magbanua are both convicted, and we just heard at the start of the day that no one in the Adelson family has been charged and no one has been arrested in connection with the Dan Markel murder. If they are convicted, do investigators then target the Adelsons? And if so, the question, of course, is do they work out a deal with these two people, Garcia and Magbanua? And what kind of deal could they work out if they're ultimately convicted?
Okay, number one, if they are convicted, both Garcia and Magbanua, absolutely they would then focus like a laser beam on Wendy and Charlie Adelson. That's a given.
And Donna as well, the mother.
And Donna. As many people as possible that allegedly could be part of this conspiracy, murder for hire. That's a given. You never, ever, ever close a case against individuals who committed a murder or hired somebody to commit a murder. Never. A second question is, and this gets into prosecutorial judgment, prosecutorial discretion, and the policy of the office. When I was a federal prosecutor, if you went to trial and you got convicted, rarely would we let you cooperate after you're found guilty. Rayful Edmond, the biggest drug dealer in the history of the District of Columbia, has been in prison for a long time. They may cut him a break and give him time served because he's been cooperating for the last 20 years. That's rare. He went to trial, he got life. What I would have done, what I would do if I went down that route, I would say to Garcia, if he gets the death penalty, and he probably will, if you agree to cooperate, we'll recommend life. Okay? Work out some deal where he can get life. Going to Catherine, you could do the same thing if they cooperate. But that's a big decision, Jesse. That's a big decision. It sends a bad message to defendants. Hey, I can go to prison, I can go to trial, get convicted, and then I can work out a deal. That sends a bad message, but it depends on a type of case.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And with her, she doesn't face the death penalty. Is there such, and correct me if I'm wrong, look, I have no idea here, but is there a situation where you could say, listen, if you cooperate, we can make your stay in prison more comfortable? We might give you some kind of perks. I mean, how would that work if she's ultimately sentenced to life in prison? What do you offer her?
Well, here's the thing. This is a disadvantage being a state prosecutor. If you're a federal prosecutor and a person's convicted, they go to prison. Under Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 35, Rule 35, if you cooperate after you've been convicted, either by guilty plea or by a verdict of guilty, the prosecutor can go back to the court and file a Rule 35 motion and say, Judge, cut the sentence, they've cooperated. Rayful Edmond, they're going to make such a motion, and he'll get time served of, I think, 40 years or 35 years. The state system, I don't think, has that vehicle under their rules of criminal procedure.
It's interesting. So it would have been better for her if she really is involved in this and really does have information. It would have been better for her to make a deal and cooperate before what we see right now, what's happening in this trial. And based upon what we've seen so far, prosecution has a very strong case. The defense is trying to pick holes in it, and maybe, who knows which way this will go when ultimately they have to put on their case as well. We're going to take a break. I think they're taking a 15-minute break as well. When we come back, Gene and I are going to break down the latest in this trial. Stay tuned.